Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friends on Friends.
Friends on Friends.
The movie review podcast where we're watching every movie starring a friend from Friends. I'm one of your friends, Jacob DeNoble.
I'm Danielle Lohan.
And we are here to talk about breast men.
See, no one has ever said that before. I don't think this movie, I don't think anyone could have found anything redeeming about it, even if you like breasts. Am I wrong?
So let's just dive in. This stars David Schwimmer.
Yeah, and his roles just keep getting worse and worse.
He's bad in this.
But also, I think he has bad judgment in selecting roles, because I cannot believe that this was the best thing that was offered to him in that particular time of his life.
So let's explain what Breast Men is to people.
If we must.
So Breast Men was an HBO original film, and it is a very fictionalized version of the introduction and invention of the breast implant, and then some lawsuits that come after that. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, I would think so. It's a weird tone of movie, and we can get into this more, but they're not really letting us connect to characters. They're kind of letting us dip in and out of lives, but that's not how you connect to a person. Mm-hmm. And there's no character development. There are hardly, between the main two characters, that's really all we get between David Schwimmer and his essentially co-star. And then the rest of the main subject of this film, which should be the women who are receiving the breast implants, are reduced to boobs. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, it's we're intercut every, 5.5 minutes or so with, I can't even describe it as a talking head, because literally their heads are chopped off of the screen and you're just looking at their breasts as they're talking over it. And it's supposed to be this quasi-feminist, I did this for me, I was feeling bad, blah, blah, blah. But the only stories, and I know I'm going a little too far into this, but the only stories we're hearing is my boobs were small and now that they're bigger, I feel better. We don't actually see anyone who, quote, needs it. And I use quotes there because, you will not die if you do not have a breast implant, even if you have some kind of medical condition. But we don't see anyone with tubular breasts, which is a common reason that people will get an implant, or mm-hmm. Or damage in some way. They never even talk about breast cancer, and maybe that's just it wasn't really thought of at that point. But it's trying so hard to be feminist that I'm sure this is written by men, first of all, but it's trying so hard to say, we are feminists. This was a feminist choice that X number of women made, that it completely veers off into, this is a reduction to the most base reason that a person could decide to get a breast implant is want them bigger.
Yeah. And I feel like I can see a world in which the filmmakers think this is an artistic choice that kind of harkens back to When Harry Met Sally. I don't know if have you seen When Harry Met Sally?
I haven't.
So When Harry Met Sally, throughout the film, occasionally sprinkled in, they intercut couples talking about how they met. And then the end of the movie, you see Harry and Sally, and you realize, oh, this device has all been leading here. But it happens maybe there's 4 or 5 times throughout the entire film that this happens. These talking breasts, as you would call them,
I would,
happen, like you said, every 5 minutes, to the point where I would estimate a sixth of the movie is just these scenes. And like you said, they're so repetitive and they don't say anything. You zone out every time they come on because you're not getting anything interesting.
Yeah. And, if I wanted to be super generous, I would say that's an artistic device because the two doctors who we're following in this movie don't see the women that they're operating on as actual people. They mm-hmm. literally just see them as breasts, especially when they're operating on them. Mm-hmm. They literally have their faces covered. I 100% guarantee you that was not the intention of the director of this movie.
I might give them, maybe they thought that, but I don't think it comes across.
Yeah, it's not executed well.
And I think a big problem in this movie is that, and it's like what you said, we cover, I think, approximately like 40 years in the development. This has classic biopic problem. I don't know if you know, like, if you think about biopics often.
I don't, but explain, please.
But so a lot of times, like, if you ask anybody what makes a bad biopic, the first answer will be you try to cover from birth till death. Because it makes a bad movie. But it's the, like, go-to structure for these kinds of things. And this goes from kind of the birth to death of silicone implants. And it turns into the problem that you highlighted as soon as we started talking about this. You don't get to know any characters because every time a scene changes, you're jumping ahead months, years, decades. Like, you never get to a grip on anything. You only get to, like, suggest things or montage things.
Yeah.
And it just, I think this movie's big problem is almost when it came out. So it's, like I said, it's an HBO original film, and this was early HBO. HBO is still getting its groundings, and these quote-unquote true-to-life stories were one of the things that they were kind of, that, like, setting their name with. They're like, we'll make these made-for-TV movies based on true stories. They did one about Jay Leno and David Letterman, and then this. And I think that this, 90 minutes for this story doesn't work. I the whole movie, I thought, there's an interesting story to be told about this subject. But I'm trying to think, how do you make that movie? And I'm thinking, I don't think you can make that movie in 90 minutes. If this was made in the past 10 years, it would be a streaming service miniseries.
Absolutely, yeah.
And honestly, I could see a good version of that. I can imagine a version where an entire episode is the court case that we get at the end of this. And, it is about, the health impacts. You get an entire episode dedicated to a woman who makes this choice. You get an entire episode about the actual invention of the thing, which is, these are all interesting topics that the movie just kind of skates by, puts a little pin in to say, oh yeah, here's 30 seconds to say that David Schwimmer invented a breast implant. But we have so much to cover, we're just going to keep moving on.
Yeah, it feels very much, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And it's the same emotional investment throughout the entire thing, which is very low. But the problem with emotional investment is that as your movie goes on, you're not really gonna get more invested in the characters. Like, it's asking a lot of the audience to wait to get invested in the characters' lives until halfway or more through the movie. And we don't start out with anything that gives us a sense of, like, who this person is. Because, all right, so our cast, so to speak, we have a bunch of people, but we're following David Schwimmer, who is, I'm going to call him Kevin, but he's Dr. Kevin, like, Williams, something like that, right? And then we have colleague,
Chris Cooper is the actor.
Chris Cooper. Okay, so I don't really know him, but
he's good. He's very famous. He's good. He's in Adaptation with Nicolas Cage. He's in The Muppets from 2011.
So he is playing the head surgeon, William. Okay, so those are really the two people we have: David Schwimmer as Kevin and Chris as William.
Yeah, William Larson.
William Larson. We start out with David Schwimmer at medical school. As a medical student. And he's essentially trying to find a way into surgery. And he's talking about how he doesn't respect plastic surgery. He doesn't like plastics because it's vain, and he wants to go into thoracic surgery because that's where the cool, interesting stuff is happening. But he gets this essentially idea, and he says, okay, what if we took essentially a bag filled with goo and stuck it in a boob, and then the boob was bigger. I'm reducing this a lot because otherwise it's so boring.
Yeah.
The movie has a lot of like hard cuts, right? We just kind of like jump and jump. There's no transition. There's no building of anything. So he's playing with a bag of blood. That's really what starts this obsession, which is just kind of macabre.
Yeah, again, this movie is constantly essentially just suggesting scenes and then expecting you to do the work to make it mean anything. So you see a shot of him kind of playing with a bag of blood, and you have to go, okay, this is going to be the inspiration for him coming up with the breast implant. His mentor / head surgeon, there's a really stupid scene where, you talk about how you don't get invested in these characters until halfway through. And it's like, Schwimmer's character starts off unlikable, but presented in a way that I feel like you're almost supposed to like him.
Because he's an underdog to the mean surgeon.
And then as the movie goes on, he becomes more and more unlikable intentionally. Which, again, it's fine, but then even the head surgeon, as the movie goes on, just becomes more and more unlikable. You don't really latch on to anything.
Yeah.
So they're doing surgery together, and this is, again, a moment of suggesting a story without actually telling it. He asks Schwimmer for some device because they're in the middle of surgery, and Schwimmer hands him a device that he's modified on his own to be spring-loaded, and it like bounces out of Chris Cooper's hands, and he's like, what the hell is this? And he's like, oh, I thought it would be. And so this is, again, just to tell you, an audience, oh, this man's a tinkerer. He's thinking about ways to improve medicine. But it's so unbelievable that someone would hand a spring-loaded device to a surgeon who is not expecting it.
Yeah.
That it just doesn't play at all. It's essentially the Cliff's Notes version of this story.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also get just like a real sense of awkwardness and weirdness from Kevin. So when he gets this idea for a breast implant, he just starts approaching women one-on-one and is like, hey, can I make your breasts bigger? Essentially, he doesn't say that, but
he kind of does say that. It's a whole montage that is, I think, supposed to be funny, but it's more just awkward.
It's very awkward. But then they decide to take out an ad in the newspaper. And then we jump to maybe 10 or so years later, which is the 70s. And we're supposed to assume that this has been so successful and has made them so much money that they are now super rich and like everything is going great. So just like to watch this movie and you're seeing David Schwimmer go from like awkward medical student to like awkward 70s, like pseudo rich nerd doctor guy is kind of funny, but it's not intentional.
Yeah, so having Schwimmer against Chris Cooper, and Chris Cooper is a great actor, and Schwimmer, I think, can be a great actor.
He can, absolutely. This is not a...
Yes. Schwimmer constantly feels like he's doing the SNL version of his character. And he's not helped by the outrageous wigs they're constantly putting him in. But like you said, you jump into the 70s and he automatically has this just really goofy wig with huge sideburns. I enjoy seeing him like that, but as the movie becomes more and more dramatic, it just becomes so hard to take him seriously because A, the makeup and hairstyling is so bad on him.
Tragic.
Very bad aging effects. And even when Schwimmer's doing good work, which I don't even know if I would say he is, he's undercut so much by how he looks that it feels like sketch.
Yeah.
Versus Chris Cooper, whose character starts off as an older surgeon, ends the movie as older than Schwimmer, and essentially kind of looks the same throughout the film. They gray him up a little bit, and he's playing everything much more naturalistically. I buy into his character.
Yeah.
And his character I feel like they started with an idea, which is that Chris Cooper's doctor is doing what you want them to at least talk about in those talking heads. He's saying, I want to do surgery for women who, they need, like, he is a plastic surgeon who believes in plastic surgery because of people who have, you know, disorders that require plastic surgery. And he's pitching breast augmentation as something for people who find it medically necessary. And Schwimmer is very much painted as, I want to do this because I think this is a cool, good idea. And then as the movie goes on, he very much lean into him being like, I just want to make boobs as big as I can.
Right.
And that's like the conflict between them. But then even as the movie goes on, Chris Cooper's character also becomes like jaded and celebrity and plastic surgery. And so there's not really a contrast between them. And I don't know if you looked anything up about this movie. So it opens with the thing based on a true story, slightly augmented, which let's put a moratorium on opening your movie with based on a true story. Joke about that. It's done. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah, Breastman perfected it.
Yeah, that's what But apparently, these two characters are fictional.
Oh, are they entirely?
They're not based on any actual people.
Well, maybe that is something I should have expected, because as I'm watching this and I was thinking as you were talking, like, we see them go big and fail twice.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't feel like an arc. So the big and fail is, like, for Schwimmer's perspective, he starts out as this medical student who has an idea. He successfully convinces his mentor to take it seriously. His mentor is the one who files for the patent, and essentially they are in business together with Dr. William, giving David Schwimmer like a cut of the royalties from buying and the production of these implants. And they are weirdly presented as the only doctors who do this, which
Yeah.
I think is extremely funny. But that aside, so David starts to get Kevin gets resentful, right? Because he's not getting as much money as he thinks, right? So the doctor is like cutting him out after a while. So David's like, I'm going to go out on my own. So he goes out, and that's when he discovers that he can do this surgery on topless dancers. And he is like, all right, gung ho, let's go do it. So that's when he gets his next round of success after a failure. Then after that, that's when we see like the negative effects of these implants start to come to light, with women reporting, some various amounts of like sickness and ill health, and like, augmentation results that like have aged very poorly and are disfiguring. And then we see him fall again, but then we see him rise again with like, hey, I can actually take them out and put in safe ones. So we see, if you can imagine like this mountain, we go up and down and up and down, and it's disjointing because I don't know what is supposed to be happening. Like, what is this movie trying to tell me? It doesn't try to tell me anything or present this as like, here's a story about a man. It's like I said before, this, then this, then this, then this. I
think they're like almost trying for that like Wolf of Wall Street. You're caught up in the excitement of what they can do before you realize these are bad people, and then you watch them fall. But did they really fall? Because society's also bad. But it doesn't nail it.
No.
And the up and down is, again, why I think the miniseries format, like, picture, and I'm only saying this because of Schwimmer, picture the People versus O.J. Simpson style on this movie.
Absolutely.
Where you have maybe an entire episode dedicated to medical professionals recognizing the problems with silicone. There's so many opportunities, but because this is crammed into original, technically 90 minutes, but when you add in those stupid talking breast sequences, probably 72 minutes of actual plot to this movie.
Totally. And we should say that, like, the talking breasts are not, like, the only time we see breasts in the movie. At first I was like, I should count how many times we see, but that became impossible. I would say it's upwards of 35 with all, like, the background characters.
It's definitely more than that.
You think more than even that? Okay. It's a lot. And we had talked earlier, we are not going by this plot by plot point because it's just, one, bad, and two, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And there's no point. It doesn't add anything to the experience of learning about this movie. But I just had to talk about one extremely unsettling sequence where we see David Schwimmer like licking and then snorting cocaine off of someone's breast. It's just a very awkward scene for me. One, because I haven't really bought into David Schwimmer's character as like, one, a drug user, but two, like that like destroyed of a person that, and like the cocaine use never seems to factor in. It's not like he, like he falls off a cliff metaphorically because of his cocaine use or anything like that. It's just like, oh, this happened at one point and he's just okay, I guess, after that.
Yeah.
It's just very unsettling to watch this.
Yeah. I mean, when I look up reviews of this, a lot of them are, you get to see David Schwimmer snort cocaine off of a woman's breast. So, like, that's at least something that I haven't seen before.
I have never seen so many topless people in a movie. One, easily never. But then also,
yes,
like...
me neither.
You horrible man. I have also never... What movie are you watching that has more than like 50 topless women in it?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. This is going to be like a funny thing to say this movie, despite us seeing David Schwimmer like motorboating a woman at one point, doesn't make me more attracted to David Schwimmer. And like, I know that that's on purpose. Like, this character is not supposed to be like a sexy person, but like when you think of like a movie that has just like so many boobs in it and then has like absolutely zero level of like sexual titillation with it, it's a very strange feeling.
Yeah, because like even the breasts are very non-sexualized.
I really think that one, the majority of them are probably fake. Just because how are you going to get that many women? And also we see scars, we see disfigurement. It's just wow. But also like they're just it's almost like a costume. And I don't mean that in the sense of like they're literally wearing a costume, but like this is just how this environment is. It's not presented because the surgeons themselves are rarely like checking out the breasts for like sexual pleasure. They're like looking at them almost, I hate to give them so much credit, as artists, where they're like, how can I make this more aesthetically pleasing? And like they know what aesthetically pleasing looks like because they're men. But they're not creepy with their clients.
Yeah. It is interesting. I will say, watching this movie, when I think of quote unquote this style of breast implant, which was, I would consider like very big in my childhood. You were aware of this? Not like but like what, that Pam Anderson era, the early 90s, the like, again, just like globular, like it's a very particular, there's very little relationship between it and reality. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I was surprised to see that developed as early as the 70s and 80s, where I don't necessarily associate it with it as much. I bet probably very few people could afford it. I didn't look up inflation calculator, but they were talking about how... Are you laughing at that? You horrible man, twice in one episode. It's just a funny term to use. I was looking up... There's not even a euphemism I can use for it. No. The inflation calculator. And they were saying that's like $7,000 or so for the surgery to get breast implants. Like, if that's like around, let's say like, I don't know, 85. I'm trying to think of like a middle year for this, maybe 80. Like, I don't know, is that like 21K today in today's money? Like, you think it's tripled? Probably about, maybe. I'm just thinking like how much of it. All right, so let's say like minimum like 18 or so. I was looking up how much breast implants cost as we were watching this in today's money, and it has gone down from there. So like, I don't know, maybe this is a weird thing to compare it to, but it's one of those. It's elective most of the time. You know, you're going to see decreases in prices for surgeries that are elective on an open market. Yeah. And it's just interesting. I mean, I know people who've had augmentations of various kinds, and I don't think any of them
I mean, possibly, maybe what they wouldn't have done it if it was $21,000, but they would consider it if it was like 6 or 8, which is what I saw, you know?
Yeah.
Just interesting.
That is interesting. Watching this made me think about Schwimm's career.
Oh, please, yes.
I keep calling him Schwimm in all my notes.
Schwimmy.
And I really get the sense that he wants to play unlikable. I think he wants to run from Ross, which is funny because even Ross is not the most likable friend.
Agreed.
But I think he wants that like dark comedy element to him. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, Courtney famously, told Wes Craven, I can be a bitch. I want to be a bitch in Scream. And Courtney nails it. Schwimmer, I cannot take seriously as anything other than like a sad sack.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even him in his good roles, even him in Band of Brothers, even him as Robert Kardashian, there is a big element of sad sack to those performances.
I was just thinking of the Kardashian role. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I am in a circumstance outside of my control. I'm trying to hold it together. And just to see him, again, to watch a movie that is quote unquote about his fall, because he's arguing for saline implants at the beginning. And the manufacturers say, no, we have a better plan. It's silicone. Silicone turns out to be bad. And like that, like rise and fall. I just don't buy him in a role like that. I don't buy him as a tempted man, which I guess also goes back to the pallbearer. And I don't root for him. So I think that makes him harder to watch in a role where he's playing a character who you are like supposed to follow despite the fact that you don't root for him.
I think we have seen 2 movies now where David Schwimmer is like the star, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen Pallbearer and we've seen Breast Men. But we've also seen $20 mm-hmm. where he's supporting, and he was really good in that.
Yeah.
And as much as I like appreciate David Schwimmer's acting in some ways, what I appreciate it most is when he's a side character who has, he's not the one that I want to follow.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm not really familiar with the rest of his career if we're going to get him as like a good lead. But at the moment, like all I want him to do is find an interesting, supporting actor role where he doesn't have to be the one that I care about. Yeah. I can just like see him do something. And if he fails, if he's bad, if he's like, terrible, awful, then like it's an interesting story, but I don't care.
I think not the next movie we see him in, but the movie after that, 6 Days, 7 Nights, he plays essentially the other man who's like in a relationship, but we're following the romance of his girlfriend and Harrison Ford.
I didn't know we were going to see Harrison Ford.
Yes, 6 Days, 7 Nights.
Okay, cool.
Harrison Ford and Téa Leoni.
Oh, she's in Spanglish.
Yeah, she is. I just wasn't expecting you to
pull Spanglish.
I would like to watch Spanglish again. I only saw like 3/4 of it once, but I really like James L. Brooks.
Wait, isn't Adam Sandler in
yes.
that? Oh, okay, all right. I was like, what am I thinking of?
It's by the writer and director of Broadcast News, which I was watching that one time.
Yeah, you like that one with Albert Brooks,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Who we saw in Mother.
Yeah, look at us.
Connections. I have never known as many like connections as I do when I'm watching these movies with you.
Yeah.
Mostly because you like to go, when we see like a director or a cinematographer come up on the screen, and then you look it up and then you save the cool, interesting information for telling me during the podcast.
Well, so speaking of some of those people, so this movie does have a couple of us. The woman who gets the first ever breast implant, and she is, oddly enough, playing a real woman, is played by the actress who played Pepper Ann in Pepper Ann. Also sings the theme song to Pepper Ann.
The best theme song ever.
And plays Luke's sister on Gilmore Girls. I forget the actress's name, but she's excellent. She's
cool.
She's in Witchboard. She's just always a delight when you see her.
Nice.
We also get Terry O'Quinn from Lost. People love him on Lost. I know you never watched Lost.
I did not.
He is also the stepfather in the Stepfather franchise.
Stepbrothers.
No.
I don't know.
Stepfather is a serial killer movie about... No. Yeah, he's like, he marries into a family, but then it turns out he's a killer, and only the kids realize it. And then the mom has to fight against her new husband, and then he does it 2 more times.
Yuck.
Yeah. Who else is there? I think there was... and we also have Matt Frewer, who most people know as Max Headroom, which you probably...
Is this a Simpsons thing?
No, it was an 80s... He played a virtual reality character who people thought was CG, but was just a man in makeup. And he would like... Impossible to describe.
Okay.
But he was constantly on MTV. He had his own show briefly. He was created by the directors of the live-action Super Mario Brothers movie. Yada, yada, yada. Matt Frewer's in this movie as the man who is pushing silicone instead of saline.
Okay.
Those are my big actor connectors that I saw this time around.
Yeah. Let's see if there's anything else to say about this movie.
Yeah. I every other note I have is just like, God, this movie is booking it. The montage is taking all of the drama of the film, because every time you actually have a scene that would mean anything, you just get a montage instead.
Can we go to the ending?
Yeah, the very ending.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So this ending, we're watching as David Schwimmer has realized that there is a buku box in getting these breast implants out of women and putting the, quote, safer saline ones into them. Mm-hmm. So he has regained his money that he lost from some of the lawsuits. Mm-hmm. And he is driving his cute red Corvette all through, I assume, California, wherever the hell he lives. Mm-hmm. And he's just being an asshole, talking on his car phone about how he wants this herbal spa treatment and they didn't get him the herbal spa and he's mad. And as I'm watching this, I am just hating him. And I'm like, I really hope he gets hit by a car, because he then starts to look to his side and he sees a beautiful woman who's blonde in her own convertible and he's staring at her. And then, as it happens, all of a sudden he gets hit, T-boned by a cement truck. And then the movie ends after like a shot on the car where the car is like twitching.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
It is fun. It's the one time that like the movie does, I think, accurately see that the audience wants to see this man demolished. Because I think if this were a good movie prior to it, the moment, I think the right ending for that movie is that scene where we are cutting between all of the women being like, you charge more to take these out? Okay, I guess I'll do it. And like, that is a thematic, like, yes, signature to the film. And then there's another scene afterwards and you're like, oh, you kind of had an ending right here. And the scene after is just him getting hit by a cement truck. It's almost... Nowadays, I would almost put this as a, like, mid-credits scene. Where, like... Because that is, I feel like that other button is the end of the movie. And then this is just, don't worry, he's gonna get flattened.
Okay, yeah, I would like that sequence if they had thought to do that.
Yeah, that sequence is very funny to me because it's very clear that they couldn't afford a motion control camera, because it's a camera that's like backing away from women who are sitting in a chair and it's cutting between all the women, and so the room is supposedly staying still and the women are switching out, but they couldn't afford a motion control camera that can do the same movement at the same speeds time after time, so like the room kind of jiggles every time they do it. There's a boom mic in one of the shots.
Even I noticed. And when I notice something like that, it's quite bad.
This will mean very little to you, but is interesting to me and maybe to some of the listeners. This movie was directed by the son of comic book writer Denny O'Neil, who is kind of like the Batman writer. He's just a very big guy in comics. And his son made one movie, and it's this.
See, it's so interesting because our friends are taking a chance on like first-time writers between Breast Men and Dream for an Insomniac. I would not be surprised if there were other first-time writers, directors that I just don't know offhand. But I remember you telling me that Dream for an Insomniac was directed as like a pet project of a young rich gal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I don't know. It's so fascinating. And you know what? Maybe this is just like where TV was in the early 90s, mid 90s, that they were TV stars and they just didn't have, you know, the guaranteed entry, or maybe they were just weirdly less strategic than Courtney Cox was.
Yeah.
Because she is a true movie star.
Yep. You know, it's interesting to think about this movie in the early days of HBO, where HBO is largely famous at the time of being like the only channel where you can see boobs.
See them, you do.
So, like,
if you've never seen boobs before, I mean, this movie's on YouTube.
Yeah, which I'm kind of shocked by.
It is pretty shocking, isn't it?
Yes. So the guy who wrote this movie was an actor. He will write one other movie that we cover on this show.
Oh, no.
That's also apparently very bad.
Is it David?
No, it's Jennifer Aniston in Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg.
Ugh.
But he directed. He has an interesting directorial career. He worked on The L Word for a while, but he also made Crazy Beautiful with Kirsten Dunst, Blue Crush, that surfing movie, and Into the Blue with Jessica Alba and Paul Walker.
Is that another surfing movie?
No, that's a, like, we're diving and there's pirates or something.
That's Breastmen.
That's Breastmen.
Don't watch it. It's not good.
Yeah, there's better places to see breasts. If that's really what you want to do.
Thank you, Jacob.
I'm just, you know, for the breast fans in the audience. So
should we get to our questions?
Yeah, let's get to our questions. Did this help or hurt his career?
Oh my god, I want this to have killed his career, but I mean, it didn't.
Yeah,
it's gonna sound wild. How on earth does David Schwimmer keep acting and Matt LeBlanc after Ed not keep acting? I am coming back to this. I have to. I think about this a lot because I know Ed is not like a good movie, but I have fonder memories of it, as you have said. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just because you can see Ed through the lens of a child's film, and I cannot take that seriously. Whereas all of the David Schwimmer movies and a lot of the Jen movies, they want to take themselves so seriously and they want to do so much more than they are equipped to.
Yep. And
I watch this and I'm like, I don't even want to see David Schwimmer in more stuff at this point. Like, if I didn't even know him from Friends, I'd be like, this was an eminently forgettable film with two bad actors that I just don't care to ever think about again. Sorry, guys.
I thought Chris Cooper was pretty good.
I mean,
he wasn't given a lot, but
no, he was not, and that's obviously not his fault.
Yeah,
he does okay with what he's given, but I don't think he's like, wow, this guy.
Yeah. So did the Friends cast see this movie?
Oh my god, I hope not, because if I had to watch my colleague snort cocaine off of a woman's fake breast, I might quit.
I think we both know the answer to. Did any of the Friends characters see this movie?
1000%, yes. All the guys did.
I was going to say at least Chandler and Joey. The guys who watched Born together.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about this, and I'm like, well, Jesus Christmas.
Joey and Chandler.
Chandler and Joey 100% did. I bet Ross was just like, I'm not going to watch that. And then he like side eyes the whole time as he's like eating pizza in the background.
He's like, this is actually a very interesting medical story.
Girls didn't, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. What does Gunther think of this movie?
Gunther is mad that it's not the real story. Like, Gunther had been following those guys' careers, and is like, I don't know why they didn't write them into this movie.
You are hilarious. I think Gunther hates this movie because he thinks women are beautiful on the inside. You're welcome. Was there a role for Joey in this movie?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anywhere. He could be the strip club owner.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he could have played the older, like, mean one if they were okay with it being a contemporary rather than a mentor.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even that strip club, they introduce a concept that I think is rich with drama, and then it's just never really spoken of again, where the strip club owner tells Schwimmer, I will force my women to go to you if you give me a 10% kickback from all of the surgeries you do. That's an interest. It's just dropped after that. Yeah. We see later that he, kicks Schwimmer out when people are starting to be concerned about the health impacts of breast implants. But again, I don't know. It's just, there's a concept there.
Yeah, absolutely there is. And our last question, which is usually my favorite, but I have been struggling with how I would answer this.
Yeah.
What actor would you take and put as a guest star on Friends?
All right, let's look at the actors.
Okay.
So we can see some faces. Judith Hoag was in this movie? She's April O'Neil in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
All right. Well, here's the thing. We're looking at this, and at least for me, there is no one I recognize and I feel like would be an interesting addition besides the existence of David Schwimmer. So I am going to take David Schwimmer because I cannot, in good conscience, pick any of these other people because, one, it won't be fun to listen to because they all suck. And two, I don't know them, so I can't even think of something exciting. So I'm going to take David Schwimmer as if he is a different actor. So the Friends have a desire to get healthy and they want farm fresh produce. So they go to a co-op or something, and it's run by David Schwimmer, who is the most negative and just down person you could think of. But they don't like it because he packs the produce boxes and he's constantly giving them bad produce. And they keep trying to get better produce, but his argument is that these dented cans and bruised apples and whatever, they need to have a life outside of the grocery store. And everyone hates him, and then the movie or the show ends.
I like this because it posits a world in which David Schwimmer plays 3 characters on Friends.
Exactly.
Russ, and this guy. Phoebe plays 2. Does anybody else play multiple characters? Just a question for the Friends expert of us.
I know. We have mentioned before that there are 2 characters, the Ross and Phoebe playing other characters. But I don't think there's been another.
All right. So for my pitch, I'm going to pick someone who I haven't mentioned on the podcast as of yet, but who I definitely did perk up when he showed up in the movie. And it's musician Lyle Lovett.
Oh, yeah.
Who I just adore. He's a great musician. He's in a lot of Robert Altman movies. He doesn't really do much else. And he just has such a quirky energy. I would love to see him as a street musician who's playing outside of Central Perk, who is drawing people out from listening to Phoebe to listen to him play on the street, outside in the street. And Phoebe's getting more and more mad because she's like, I'm inside. They don't want to sit on the couches. And she makes all the friends leave the good spots. Can I add to this? It starts to rain. Everyone's still outside. Yes. I love that. Yeah. So that's Breast Men. Oh, God. It's on YouTube. We were actually really worried we were going to have to buy the DVD of this. Yeah. Could you imagine if we had to spend money to see this film? Yeah, it's a $6 DVD. Boy, I wouldn't file it with the other DVDs. What would you do with it? I'd give it away. Oh. Okay. But yeah, that's Breast Men. Yeah. Coming up next week or next episode is The Opposite of Sex, which is supposedly good. Okay. And Lisa Kudrow's in it. It's got Christina Ricci. And we'll see how it is. Can we predict what The Opposite of Sex is? Sure.
What do you think the opposite of sex is? Jacob's making a gesture where he's putting his hands together. Oh no, you horrible
so if sex
man.
is things going in.
They just keep taking things out of a vagina.
The opposite of sex in a relationship is... All right, so you can't be in a bed. So you have to be standing. But you can have sex while standing. All right, you're back to back.
Sometimes that helps.
I'm sorry, back to back? I can think of a lot of sexual positions. I don't know if I can picture any that are back to back. These are double jointed somehow. Yeah, I guess a duel. Yeah, because you're back to back, you're walking further away from each other as opposed to getting closer, and then at the end, one of you dies. So that's my guess.
Okay. All right. I'll accept your guess. I am the judge here, naturally. Okay. For me, I'm thinking opposite of sex has to be being super far away from each other. So maybe one of them goes on a really long journey and everyone that they meet, they repel. And they finally meet one other person who isn't repelled by them and they're like, why? And they have to try to figure out what makes this person not repelled by them. There's a bit of magic in my version.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's as likely, if not more so, than there being a duel in this movie with Christina Ricci. So.
Who would win in a duel between Lisa Kudrow and Christina Ricci?
Ricci.
Yeah, I think so. She's got some fight in her.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.